Don't worry, Heckling Fandom. I won't freeze up on you like Ron Seymour did with Jake Seeley from The Athletic. It's time for garbage time. Guys, welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Ready to do a way too early mock draft. It should be fun.
A way too fucking early mock draft, right?
Heck yeah.
You know it's always good to do one right before OTAs. Guys, if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, don't be afraid to subscribe to the show here on YouTube. Like the show, you can also visit us at www.garbagetimeft.com. And if seeing our ugly faces isn't your kind of thing, you can also listen to us in audio formats on Spotify, Apple, Google, now Pandora, Tunein, and Iheartradio. And without further ado, we want to get into this mock draft, so let's get into the news.
News updates.
So, Ryan, Kyler Murray is missing OTAs as expected. What's to make of this?
Just a big baby. He's trying to keep playing for him. Nothing's going to change, no matter how many times he unfollows and refollows them or whatever. Yeah, I don't really know what his deal is.
So is there any concern about him potentially not playing for him this year? Because I'm not getting that vibe. Any chance he holds out?
He definitely plays.
Okay, Deebo Samuel is also missing. Is this a little bit of a bigger problem for the 49ers? I mean, he's been grumbling all offseason now.
Yeah, and he hasn't let up. He hasn't, from my understanding, he hasn't changed his stance or anything. So that one is definitely a little bit more concerning. Hopefully, I mean, that's why we don't do fantasy drafts in frickin' May. Hopefully it's figured out by, August or September.
Do you foresee them potentially giving him a contract and, money fixes everything? Or do you think this is going to be an issue going into next season?
I think so. I don't know, because, I think they already tried to, throw the bag at him, and he wasn't interested, but I don't know. You got the 49ers that are basically saying, no way, we're not trading you, and you got Deebo saying, well, I don't want to be on your team. So we've seen players in that, those high value players sit out before. I mean, more so with running backs. I don't know if we've really seen wide receivers do it, but it's an interesting situation for sure.
Now, is this concerning if he misses time during OTAs and potentially if he holds out into training camp? Should the 49ers announce Trey Lance as the starter? Is that a formula where he's got to create a repertoire with Deebo Samuel, or has he had enough time with Trey Lance to just be a plug-and-play kind of player if he holds out for all of training camp and decides to show up for the regular season?
That's a good point. I mean, regardless, either way, he's going to be missing some level of rapport, so you might see a couple-week grace period before he gets really established. And then my second question, it could be a question to you, but then I just asked it myself, is it sounds like he wants to get away from that running back position. If he goes back to just being a straight wide receiver, what do you think that does to his fantasy value? Do you see him drop pretty significantly compared to what level of production we saw last year?
I think his value drops from, if he had that running value, a late first round wide receiver to potentially more of a third round wide receiver, just due to the explosiveness. I really just don't understand why these parties can't come together and fix this. My gut instinct, regardless of what the 49ers beat reporters say, we know they are always wrong. I think Trey Lance is going to be the starter this year. And if you get him on the field anyway, the running volume really goes up for Trey Lance and the running backs at that position. It doesn't necessarily mean Deebo Samuel is needed for that role, because your offense is going to be evolving and they can look to get him out of that role. So I don't see why there isn't a scenario where all parties could end up happy in this situation. Honestly, this may just come down to location and pay. Do you think there's anything else to this that we haven't outlined? And where do you see his fantasy value should the running ability for him fall off due to them cutting it out of the scheme?
I think I agree with you. Like you go from late first to more like that third round area. I think they're gonna work it out eventually. It's a very weird situation, but still one time before the season starts. So I think they'll work.
You think they'll work it out, huh? It'll be nice to see when Ryan gets back into this room. Obviously, he's frozen out of it. So that's going to make it a little bit more concerning as I'm doing it on my own now, Heckling Fandom, the workhorse of this podcast. So I'm going to stall until he gets back on this episode because obviously he's got an issue. In some more news, Travis Etienne is full go to go during OTAs. This is very interesting considering he is coming back from a Liz Frank injury, which was suffered early last summer. So with him coming back full go, this really could separate him from Robinson, whose injury was suffered late into the season. So should Travis Etienne be a full go for them this season, you could easily see his value currently at the 5th round or 6th round of fantasy mock drafts being absolutely exquisite. He could be a hell of a value and could be a high-end wide running back too for your team. In other news, Nick Foles has a new 2-year contract with the Colts, so he's now the backup there. Should he end up playing for the Colts this year, I don't think you'll see a ton of drop-off between him and Matt Ryan in those positions. And don't worry, Ryan, I stalled for you while you were gone and logged you back in because obviously you're having connection issues, as Ron Seymour did earlier, so that's funny how that happens.
My computer must have been talking to Ron, and they...
You were just doing your best Ron Seymour impression when Jake Seeley's on the show.
I think I got up quicker than he did, though.
All right, I'll go back to the topic I was talking about while you were gone really quick there, too. Travis Etienne is said to be a full go for the Jaguars. What do you think of his value for fantasy football now at his current ADP, considering he's going in the 5th and 6th rounds of early fantasy mock drafts?
Is that where he's going?
Yes, currently.
I'm all about it. If at the 5th and 6th, then sign me up.
Okay, and you think that gives him a clear head start on James Robinson, who occurred his devastating injury late in the season?
Yeah. Yep. And like we've talked about a little bit before, James Robinson is coming off a pretty serious injury. A lot of people don't bounce back that well from that one. If Etienne's already 100% good to go, then that definitely gives him a jump start.
Okay, and where do you see James Robinson's draft value being currently?
It's low. I mean,
plummeting.
I think unless you have Etienne, you're probably not even looking at him.
Okay, and this next topic I know is one near and dear to your heart, so I'm going to give you the floor for this one. NFL insider Albert Breer said that Bill Belichick may be calling offensive plays for the Patriots in 2022, and there was other beat reporters saying that there was true concern on the play calling from the offensive staff of the New England Patriots. What the hell is going on in the New England Patriots camp, and how is this going to affect fantasy football? Are we going to see the defensive-minded Super Bowl winning head coach Bill Belichick calling the offensive plays next year?
Well, like you said, we know what we think about those beat reporters most of the time. But if it's Bill having a big hand in the offense, I think you can expect to see a lot of the run game. So you would want to start looking at some of those running backs. It's going to be very difficult to predict which one, as usual. James White is finally getting cleared, so that's just going to make it a little bit more, even more crowded back there. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't know if I love Matt Jones's value if Bill's calling the plays. Like, I feel it being a much more run heavy kind of team. Like, we're going to see that Bills versus Patriots game just every week.
Okay, and do you?
Not that extreme, but still.
Yeah, not that extreme. You'll see him more of a game manager, kind of in the role he was last year.
Yes. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting how that works out. I know they've been a little weird on their titles for the coaches and things like that. So
No doubt.
I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. I think the odds makers only have the Patriots at like 8 wins this season. I'll take that bet. But
how do you feel about Nick Foles' new 2-year contract with the Colts?
it's a solid. I mean, he's a solid backup. I mean, we've seen what he can do as a backup. So
I said Matt Ryan's fantasy value for the Colts, while limited due to Jonathen Taylor being the whole offense. I honestly don't think there would be much of a drop off if he was filling in for the Colts. And I don't think you would see these wide receivers dip if Nick Foles was starting for that team in some precarious situation.
No, which is why it's kind of smart for the Colts, because like you could almost swap them out. Like it's not like you're going from like the Patriots when they had Tom Brady, then we went to Jacoby Brissett. We were going from a pocket guy to like a scrambling guy. You know what I mean? They're very
exactly
player.
Okay, in other news too, there are reporters out there saying that Cam Akers is currently at 85% going forward for the season. Are you confident in Cam Akers' ability to come back to full form this upcoming season, or do you think he's going to be falling backwards due to this injury? He looked a little bit limited in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone was so impressed to see him kind of come out and how he did. Not how well he did, but how early he came back. Hopefully that was him at like 85%. You know what I mean? And we see a little bit more, because he didn't average more than what, like 3.5 yards per carry. In one game he went over 3.5 yards per carry, and that was in the Super Bowl. So it's gonna be tough. I don't know how confident I would be in trying to draft him.
Where would you draft him?
It would have to be late. It'd be real late.
Okay. Moving on to another running back too. The bullshitting 49ers beat reporters think Elijah Mitchell is going to be the top option for the 49ers this year. Do you have any reason not to believe them? And are you avoiding this backfield again, or are you feeling pretty safe about his viability this upcoming season? Because you have to take in, it feels like, with some pretty high draft stock.
Oof. Yeah, so
sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
No, I mean, you got Jeff Wilson, Trey Sermon back there, but I mean, if Debo's out of the running game where he wants nothing to do with it, then all those touches got to go somewhere. So if they go to Elijah Mitchell, then that's not a bad look as far as fantasy goes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying there too. Although the 49ers always running to run a running back by committee back there.
Yes.
And Trey Lance potentially coming into the offense could change the outlook of that. So I do find that a little bit concerning, but there's no reason why, should Elijah Mitchell stay healthy, him not be a decent focal point of this offense, especially considering Debo's bitching about wanting to get out of the running game. So where would that work potentially go? Elijah Mitchell. Next little story that I have here for you. Notice I said story because the offseason is nothing but a bunch of stories and assuming shit at this point of the offseason. Browns want to move on from the offense that they were using last year to use more 3 wide receiver sets, and they want to have a run pass option. What do you think about this for Deshaun Watson and potential options for that offense?
And this is assuming Deshaun Watson isn't suspended.
Correct.
Yeah, I could see the run options being huge. That's going to be if he's playing the whole season. I mean, I think his fantasy value is going to be insane because of all the stuff they're going to try to do with him. I think it would almost hurt their running back group, though. I think that would be the biggest takeaway from it.
Okay, and then Tariq Cohen ruptured his Achilles tendon during a training session live on camera. I was trying to save this story for JJ, but is this the last we've seen of Tariq Cohen in the league?
I think so. The dude has had so much bad luck.
It's been insane to see.
I'm rooting for him. I hope I'm wrong, but man, that's tough, especially every year you get older, you know?
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Anything you wanted to go over for the weekly news that I didn't cover?
No, man, I think you nailed it.
And again, guys, we again just really quickly before we get into this fantasy mock draft, want to thank Jake Seeley for coming on with Ron Seymour, the fantasy specter, who did ghost him for about 8 minutes. And laying down the fantasy advice that we really all could use.
It's actually hilarious that Ron ghosted him. I didn't know that. That's so funny. You know, the biggest moment in our sad little fantasy podcast, and Ron ghosts the guy. But yes, a huge thank you for him coming on. That was awesome.
One point I wanted to discuss tonight, and guys, we will drop the link for that episode. It's about 23 minutes of very, very good content in this episode below. So if you want to go see that too, I will drop the link down below. You will see that in audio formats and here on YouTube. He brought up a point about Tyler Algier, which I thought was very interesting early in the episode, saying that they're going to look to get Cordell Patterson more into that passing role this year because, first off, they don't have a lot of options there outside of Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And that potentially running back blank, whoever they fill in at that position, is going to be the one that's going to take that first and second down role. While he didn't credit Tyler Algier as being highly talented, only a one-scheme kind of runner, he's got a propensity of getting in the end zone. Does that make you look at Tyler Algier in a different light in any fashion, or what's your opinion on this?
I feel like we threw Tyler Algier on our radar during our during the episode we did because I totally agree. I think they're going to look to because the Cordell Patterson experiment was kind of fading a little bit there towards the end of the season. So I see them trying to get him back more into that wide receiver role, and could totally see Tyler Algier getting some value there, especially in as far as rookies go. That's pretty good, and would definitely. I know they were focusing on late sleeper dynasty picks, and that would definitely be a solid one.
Yep. Is there any other points that Jake brought up today that you wanted to express your opinion on, or
I haven't even listened.
You have a different one?
I haven't listened to the full episode yet, so
you're gonna have to go back and do that tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some night watching and get that in.
Yep, and hope to have you back soon, Jake. And without further ado, let's get into that mock draft.
Cannot play with him. Cannot win with him. Cannot coach with him. Can't do it. I want winners.
And with that, Ryan is, I think, off screen currently. I would remove him, but he is fortunately trying to get back into this. So I am going to delay just a little bit longer and give my opinion on what the Browns want to do in those three wide receiver sets. And I think Ron brought up a very important point earlier about the Browns wide receivers. An interesting point about the Browns wide receivers is that, listen, they have Amari Cooper. And yes, Ryan, I was delaying for you again because you seem to have fallen off the face of the earth. So I started talking about the Browns wide receivers. Amari Cooper is going to be their clear number one with Deshaun Watson there. Donovan Peoples-Jones will be on the other side of that. And I think David Bell will play in the slot and be that third wide receiver. It could be a decent ad for you late in your dynasty drafts and maybe someone you could take a flyer on late in your fantasy drafts. Maybe we'll do that here. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, Joe. I mean, pretty soon your shoulders are going to start hurting from carrying this episode because my computer hates me. But yes, I agree. Could be a big season for him. But I'm excited and I'm ready to get this mock draft going.
Well, good thing if you drop off again, you can still continue to draft on your phone and I can give the commentary for it.
Yeah, my phone hasn't failed me yet, so
Not yet. So let's start this mock draft. All right, Ryan, you're on the clock with the first pick. So what are we doing here?
It's so nice when I get to select where I get to go and I get to put myself first because I never did the first pick ever.
Yeah, guys, and this is a standard format league, Snake, 1 QB, 12-person team. So do it in that kind of format and follow along with us.
Yeah, so for me here, I'm going to take my running back. I'm going to get the RB1. I think it's kind of a no-brainer, so I'm going to go Jonathen Taylor here.
And with that, Christian McCaffrey comes up next. Cooper Kupp, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris. And with that, I am now on the clock.
Cooper Kupp, I'm convinced that it was a flash in the pan. I would not take Cooper Kupp at 3, but maybe I'm just a hater.
Now, I'm stuck with an interesting decision here, too. We got to run on running backs. Dalvin Cook may have been taken a little bit too high. Derrick Henry should have been taken before him. And Najee Harris is also in this discussion. So I would have dropped Dalvin Cook, I think, lower than all 3 of these running backs. But I'm stuck with the decision here of Joe Mixon, Justin Jefferson, I think, is a pretty decent pick. And I've also got Jamar Chase there. Swift, Chubb, and Kamara. So I think, interestingly here, because I will get the turnaround, I think I can get one of these running backs on the turnaround. I'm going to try and take a wide receiver early. So I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson here with the 8th overall pick early.
I like it.
And you're going to hear a ding every single time it goes through. After that, Travis Kelce came off the board. It was Devontae Adams, followed by Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Swift, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, and I am back on the clock. Ryan, do you have any thoughts of this while I am looking to what I want to do next?
Am I way undervaluing DeAndre Swift and CeeDee Lamb here? I did not think they would go so soon.
I think you're maybe undervaluing DeAndre Swift. I could see him going this high, but I think Hill falls a little bit going to the Dolphins here too. And CeeDee Lamb, I think, is also being taken a little bit high here too, regardless of Amari Cooper being gone. So no, I think there's some oddities here, and you're starting to realize them. So I'm here on the clock now with Justin Jefferson being picked above. So now I definitely need to get a running back, and you need to pick your running backs early and often. So I'm going to take Nick Chubb in this spot with the 8th overall pick and get my first running back. Off the board next was Deebo Samuel, which we could be seeing getting a reduced role should he stay with the 49ers, and is a concern of ours going forward. Next was Josh Allen. Brown from Philly, which is very odd. I did not expect him to be taken that high. I think his value actually drops being in Philly, so I don't like sleepers rankings here for that. Saquon Barkley for the Giants. Mark Andrews, an excellent tight end, and actually my number 1 tight end, even over Travis Kelce this year. And next is Javonte Williams, who is going back into a committee, unfortunately, in Denver. So this puts Ryan Warner back on the clock.
Yeah, so according to Sleeper, you got Alvin Kamara as number 17. I don't know how I feel about him. Kind of got some issues going on there. I don't know whatever came of. Have we heard anything on his case?
No, not since then. So it's kind of interesting. He's a little bit in limbo. I don't know if he's going to get suspended or not, so we'll just have to see.
All right, well, I'll go Alvin Kamara, and then I get the quick turnaround. Usually I'm not crazy on taking quarterbacks super high, but it's screwed me over in the past. And luckily this is just a mock. So then I'm gonna turn around and grab. Are we doing this as a QB, 2 QB lead or 1 QB?
Just 1 QB.
And I'll snag my QB. I'll take Mahomes.
So after Patrick Mahomes, Kyle Pitts goes off the board. Aaron Jones, Zeke Elliott, Keenan Allen, Waller, and Mike Evans. I'm actually getting a little bit higher on Aaron Jones. What were you saying? Go ahead.
I still don't like Zeke Elliott. I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting pick, and I'm getting a little bit higher on Aaron Jones for the simple fact that I think the Green Bay Packers are going to have to use him in the passing game this year because they seem to have a lack of targets now that their highest volume wide receiver is now off the roster. What's your thoughts on that?
If this wasn't a mock, like honestly, I was debating Tatum Jones over Kamara. So
Really?
Yeah, like I don't think Tatum Jones there would have been a bad pick either.
So now back on the clock here, like I said, you have to take your running backs early and often. Getting Nick Chubb in the second round, I think is a good fit here. I think Deshaun Watson's going to take a lot of pressure off him with the ability to pass, especially if he's not suspended early in the offseason, and we still don't have an update on that. So here I'm going to take someone whose value has dropped a little bit, but could potentially still be a top 10 running back on the year, especially with Tom Brady coming back to that offense. So I'm going to take Leonard Fournette in this spot.
Ooh.
So next we have Deontay Johnson coming off the board, Antonio Gibson. We have David Montgomery, Cam Akers, which we just talked about the injury, so that's a very interesting spot. And then the second, actually, this will be the third quarterback coming off the board, Justin Herbert, T. Higgins, George Kittle, and Terry McLaurin. Thoughts, Ryan?
I don't know about Gibson over Montgomery.
You know, Gibson over Montgomery?
Yeah.
No, I would take Montgomery over Gibson. I do not have a lot of faith in Gibson for the simple fact he got benched last year. Yes, his parameters and his stats are nice, but Montgomery, I think, is going to get quite a workload this year.
And, you know, the Commanders brought McKissick back. They drafted a running back. So, I don't know. Gibson has me nervous.
Okay, I'm going back to the well again. I said take your running backs early and often. There's no reason you can't play this one in the flex, and I think James Conner could be in for a good season with Arizona. He's the clear number one there. And if Ito Benjamin is your number two, you're going to be the workhorse. So James Conner in the fourth round for my team. That's 3 running backs in a row. Next off the board is DK Metcalf, J.K. Dobbins, Brees Hall, which I really hope he does well this year with the New York Jets, and I think he could get quite a lot of work. Moore for Carolina, Jacobs, and Amari Cooper. And that puts Ryan squarely back on the clock.
That Moore pick. Interesting.
It feels a little high.
Right?
Especially when Sam Darnold is your quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know how much I love that one. So
maybe they're assuming the rookie's going to beat him out.
I've gotten 2 running backs. I got my quarterback. So I'm gonna look at wide receiver a little bit here. He's over in Denver. Just got Russell Wilson as his quarterback. I've been kind of high on him, maybe higher than I should be, but nonetheless, I'm gonna take Jerry Jeudy here.
That's a nice pick.
And then I get another turnaround right away. And this is tough.
Not liking what you're seeing?
It's not that I don't like it, but I'm going to stick with boosting my wide receiver core. As we know, I lean a little too heavy on wide receivers. But I would like to point out too, like maybe I shouldn't have taken Pat Mahomes so soon because I mean now you still see Lamar Jackson still there, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, like all pretty solid guys even this late. So I'm gonna go Jalen Waddle here.
It's a good pick.
A little bit nervous. They're getting a lot more weapons there, so I don't know how bad that's going to cut into him. But Tyreek Hill might take a lot of the coverage and just open Waddle up even more. So I'm going to go ahead and select Waddle.
And we all know that Tua Tagovailoa can't throw it downfield anyway, so it might be a lot of dump-offs to both of them. Next off the board is Lamar Jackson, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, which is an interesting weapon for the Rams this year. I guess we'll see if he was actually tanking last year with the Bears or if he's actually aging up. Joe Burrow comes off the board, Travis Etienne, and Michael Thomas. So this puts me on the board after taking a wide receiver in the first round and 3 running backs. So now I need to figure out where the value is for this position currently. Looking at what I've got here, I think there's still quite a bit of value at the wide receiver position dropping down the board here. So I am going to take a quarterback in this spot, and I'm going to go with Kyler Murray, who is now off the board.
I feel like Kyler Murray is at that pick is solid. I don't. Wow, Damian Harris, interesting.
Yeah, off the board after that was Pittman Hopkins. Hawkinson came off the board. Elijah Mitchell, Edwards-Helaire, which I think is falling down boards, and I don't know if the Chiefs really believe in him much anymore. Kenneth Walker, as you stated, is interesting. Cortland Sutton and Harris. Go ahead and give your thoughts on this stuff, Ryan, as I look for my next pick.
The Harris one I thought was interesting. I don't know how much I trust the New England backfield. I think Pittman's solid. Elijah Mitchell's solid. CH, once they finally started using him, was legit, but you just gotta hope that they keep using him in that capacity. I think that's the Walker for Seattle. Like, Sleeper must think he's going to do a decent amount of work because has Penny or Carson even gone yet?
No, Penny hasn't gone, and Carson definitely is not gone, especially with that neck injury.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see Walker go before Penny.
Yeah. All right, so with this pick, I said there's quite a bit of value at the wide receiver position going on the board here, and I'm going to pair Kyler Murray up with Marquise Hollywood-Brown. Next off the board is Miles Sanders for Philly, Adam Thielen from Minnesota, Brandon Cooks, Dallas Goedert, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, a very interesting target, followed up by Mike Williams. And I believe that puts Ryan back on the clock.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Amon-Ra St. Brown this season?
He came on at the end of the last season, so I don't hate it. I don't think it's a bad pick at that spot. So right here, I love my tight end position, so I'm going to try to get one of these early tight ends, hopefully get into that top 5 grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and select Dalton Schultz for this one. Just if you're able to hit on a top 5 fantasy tight end, then it could be a game changer for your league. So if you have someone that you can rely on to get consistent points, then I think that's a solid one. So I'll go ahead and take Dalton Schultz there. Now next up, I have the conundrum of I have 3 solid rookie wide receivers that I'm staring at right now. So I got Burt, Wilson.
Maybe this is the way you'll go in our rookie dynasty draft.
Right. So I got Burt, Wilson, and London. It's tough. You don't know what's quite going on in Atlanta. You got Ryan Tannehill over in Tennessee, but they also got Derrick Henry. Then you got Garrett Wilson. So it's hard, man. I think I'm gonna go Drake London. I think that he's going to be the guy there. They're pretty depleted.
And there's a massive amount of volume he's going to get there too.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Drake London, like Joe said, just based on the amount of volume he's potentially going to be able to get over there on that team. I think between the other ones, a lot of the work can be taken away either between running backs or other wide receivers. So I'm going to go ahead and select Drake London, rookie.
Does the quarterback position for the Atlanta Falcons kind of scare you?
Yes. That was like the one thing that I was like, that was leaning me away from him. If this wasn't a mock, it would have taken me significantly longer to kind of debate that with myself.
The computers heard that you wanted a rookie and decided to follow suit.
Yeah,
Next off the board was Burks, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Hunt for Cleveland, A.J. Dillon, which I think could be quite a value in the 7th round, especially him getting a lot of running. He could honestly be the number 1 running back for the Green Bay Packers this year. And you could see his counterpart getting all the passing work and them both being effective for the Green Bay Packers. They could really just lean on that position. And next off the board is Dak Prescott. While I'm looking, Ryan, do you have any thoughts?
No, I think that's a really good value for Dak Prescott. Like, all of this has made me wish I didn't take Pat Mahomes so early, but he's also a fantasy stud. So
I'm going to look at players here that could potentially get more volume. And I like the volume that Darnell Mooney is going to bring. I understand he's on an offense that may struggle a little bit based on the fact that they didn't bring in another wide receiver to help him on the other side. But when you're getting 25 to 30% of the balls thrown your direction, I like the chances he's going to have in this spot. So after Darnell Mooney, Russell Wilson comes off the board. Brandon Ayuk, who I am not going into that well again this year. I don't care how well he plays. Another rookie, Chris Olave, Tyler Lockett, Rashad Bateman, who I am big on at this point of the offseason. We'll see how that goes into the summer. Elijah Moore, who I think is honestly going to be the number 1 of the New York Jets, and I may be targeting in some of these drafts. Aaron Rodgers coming back in his senior role and GM role of the Green Bay Packers. Tony Pollard, and I am back on the clock. Any thoughts, Ryan?
Not really. I think that Rashad Bateman pick could be pretty solid based on the weapons that they've lost over there. I know it's not a super huge pass heavy team, but they've taken some hits over there. So Bateman could be solid.
I agree.
And I think Elijah Moore is a decent pick as well.
In the 8th round, give me Cordell Patterson, who I can play at both the running back and wide receiver position. Yes, I understand he faded last season, but I can take shots in the 8th round, and he can be a fill-in if one of my 3 guys go down. So I'm going to take Cordell Patterson in the 8th round, even if he's not the starting running back of the Atlanta Falcons on 1st and 2nd down. He's going to get that passing role because there's not a lot of people for them to throw to on that team. Next up is Kansas City's Juju Smith-Schuster, which is going to be very interesting to see where he's going close to the season, considering he plays with Patrick Mahomes. Hunter Renfrow. We have Robert Woods, Jalen Hurts, who, if he ascends to being a decent passing quarterback, could be a top 5 quarterback, but he has not done that as of yet. Devin Singletary, which I think is bad value here because it's going to be a running back by committee, and Cook is going to be involved, especially on 3rd down. Gabriel Davis, which is a nice shot, and the player that Team 3 should have taken before this, and this puts Ryan squarely back on the clock.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go a little off script here. I'm probably reaching way too far, but I only got 2 running backs. It's a gamble because of injury history, but I do think he'll be kind of the RB1 to start the season at least. So I'm gonna go ahead and select Penny. Obviously,
Really?
He should have the job over Walker to start. I don't love it. I don't know if I'd do it in real life, but
You're not concerned about the injury report on him coming out a few days ago?
Oh, I definitely am. But I'm gonna send it and I'm gonna do it.
Have
So
faith.
I'll go ahead and take Rashad Penny. So next up, it's an interesting lineup I have here.
Decisions. Well, Ryan's debating that too. I also wanted to cover Hunter Renfrow, who I was hoping was going to get back to me on the turnaround. Listen, Devontae Adams being with the Raiders could potentially take a lot of attention away from him, and he came into his own last year. I don't want to hear that narrative anymore that just because Darren Waller's on that team and on the field, and now that they have Devontae Adams from across from him, that he's going to fade. I think he could be in for a sneaky good season, and I think late in this draft at the 8-7, this is good value for Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you right there. Man, I'm so indecisive. Oof. You know what? There's not a ton in this area that I love. So I'm gonna go ahead and do something weird. I'm gonna take another tight end, maybe as potential trade capital. If there's someone that gets a piece of crap tight end and they're kind of struggling during the season, it can't hurt to have on your sidelines. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Knotts out of Buffalo for this pick. But now that I see him available right now, it makes me wish I didn't take Dalton Schultz. But
you're saying you may like Knox a little bit more down the line?
Yeah.
All right, next off the board is James Robinson, Matt Stafford, Michael Carter, who I think is going to be the complementary piece to the Jets, Zach Ertz, and Mike Gesicki. And I was really hoping to take a tight end here. Luckily, one fell to me that I don't mind.
Man.
I am not taking Freiermuth in this spot because why can't I just take Rob Gronkowski, who's playing with Tom Brady in this spot?
Definitely don't come out of retirement.
Yeah, so I've got no doubt about that. Next off the board was Tom Brady. Chase Edmonds, who I would not take at all because he's going to be in a committee there with Miami. I am not drafting a single Miami running back this year.
Nope.
Deshaun Watson, which could be a steal this late if he's not suspended. Kadarius Toney, who taken a shot on in the 9th round, is an excellent pick. Pat Freiermuth, the one you wanted me to pick, comes off the board on the turnaround. Isaiah Spiller for the Chargers, which could be a hell of a pick if Austin Eckler, for whatever reason, goes down because that is a high-volume offense. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, which puts me back on the clock. And what I'm going to do here is look to round out my roster just a little bit more. And I see Trey Lance here, so I am taking Trey Lance. I like the running ability, and if my quarterback goes down, I have now rounded out my quarterback room with two similar kind of quarterbacks.
So I'm back up. I already have 3 running backs, but running backs are always good to have. You never know what you're going to get. I also got Christian Watson sitting there, wide receiver. Be nice to add another wide receiver in a Green Bay offense. It's snake. It's not dynasty, so you don't got to worry about so much about Aaron Rodgers' future as you might in dynasty. So I'm going to go ahead and take Christian Watson here.
Okay.
Draft him, draft the rookie. They went out and got him from Aaron Rodgers, so I'm assuming they're going to use him. And then next, I hate it. It's going to be a committee, but for whatever reason, clearly they're not happy with what they have because they have actively sought out talent at that position. So I'm going to take James Cook out of Buffalo in the 11th round.
He is such a dynamic player, and he is just such a topic among the fantasy universe right now because so many people see him in so many different lights. Honestly, I love the talent. Unfortunately, he fell into a committee with Buffalo, but man, he feels like he's got the talent. He's got to emerge, but he's just under 200 pounds too, so you don't know if he's got the ability to be a work back. But he's a cook, and you feel like he could be good there. I mean, in the 11th round, I don't mind taking that risk on him.
I'm willing to risk it. I'm surprised he made it. I was looking at him in the 10th round, but I thought it was a little bit too early.
With that too, I'm going to take another shot on another rookie running back, one that I think everyone in our dynasty leagues is starting to fall in love with, Dameon Pierce, who could potentially be the starter for the Houston Texans. Yeah, so in the 11th round, I think that's pretty good value for a running back. I think someone that can potentially be a starter. After that is the $25 million Robert Christian Kirk, Jahan Dotson, Tyler Boyd, the man that can only throw 25 yards on the field, Tua Tagovailoa coming off the field, Allen Lazard, Justin Fields, which could be good value this late considering the running ability he has, Smith from Minnesota, the handcuff, Madison, and I am back on the clock, so I am looking for a little bit of value.
I feel like Madison's never a bad late round pick because it's almost guaranteed he's going to play at least a couple weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment too. So looking at the value here, I think I am going to take. I'm going to go with Darrell Henderson because the Rams are a good running team, and them being a good running team means that he could get some work in that backfield if for some reason Akers isn't 100%. Akers is more prone to injuries too, so Henderson would get that role should Akers not be ready. Sony Michel is gone too. So I think he's a decent value here with this pick. And after that, Trevor Lawrence comes off the board. Odell Beckham, who is not currently signed by someone, but I'm sure will be. Rondale Moore, which is a good sneaky pick and a good value here. George Pickens, which is going to have to beat out some wide receivers in Pittsburgh, but I think he's talented and could beat out Claypool to get that outside job. Higbee, or as we know in Garbage Time Fantasy Football, Higbees for the Los Angeles Rams. Jacoby Myers comes off the board, and it is Ryan Warner's pick.
Yeah, so I'm going to go. He's on a new team. He had a few flashes on his old team, but considering what his old team was, you can't blame him for not being consistently good. I'm going to go ahead and take DJ Shark here. New team. Don't know if he's going to do that well, but I'm willing to risk it this late. So I'm going to go ahead and take DJ Shark with Detroit for that pick. And next up, might be a little bit of a reach, but considering who my first pick was, I'm going to go ahead and take Hines as my handcuff, just in case. You never know what might happen. So it's always good to have a little bit of safety net.
I agree. Next off the board is the broken neck, Chris Carson, Raheem Mostert, who could be the starting running back for Miami in an ugly committee. Noah Fantastic now playing for Seattle. Jarvis Landry, Marlon Mack, who is going to be competing with a rookie for reps with the Houston Texans. Hayden Hurst. And I need to round out some depth at my wide receiver position because, boy, I've taken a lot of running backs. So
that's a typical Joe draft, though.
Yeah, no, I go usually very deep at the running back position and then have to dig at the wide receiver position just a little bit here. So with this pick, I'm going to take someone who I think is going to be signed by the Cleveland Browns. I think it's only a matter of time. I'm looking at that at training camp. I'm going to go with Will Fuller in this spot, who is a beast of a wide receiver when Deshaun Watson is playing with him. So I'm going to look for him to get on the Browns. I'm very confident that's where he's going to end up. And unfortunately, another running back that I wanted to take got sniped from me one spot when we brought up on the show, and Jake Seeley brought up from the Athletic Tyler Algier, which I am kind of pissed about. Anyway, next off the board after Fuller was Williams for Detroit, Chuba Hubbard for Carolina, David Njoku, Mecole Hardman, which is an interesting topic for Kansas City, Devontae Parker, Ryan Tannehill, and fucking Tyler Algier. I
will say I think I really like the Chuba Hubbard pick on that late, especially with all of CMC's issues. The McKissick pitch isn't bad. They clearly wanted him back. He bailed on Buffalo to go back there, so there must have been some promises there or something. Devontae Parker, it's all about what New England looks like, what their plan is. And Tyler Algier, yep, I was eyeing him, but I figured he wouldn't have made it to me. But
yep. All right, so I need another wide receiver 3, and boy is he not flashy, and boy is his name not flashy, but he always performs for the Denver Broncos, even as the third wide receiver. So I'm going to go with Tim Patrick and hope that he creates a consistency with Russell Wilson up there in Denver, or in the event of there being an injury, he could be quite a value here. So I'm going with Tim Patrick. Next up is Myles Gaskins, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Robbie Anderson, who playing with Sam Darnold is not going to do anything this year, David Bell, and Ryan's back on the clock for his last 2 picks.
My last 2?
Yes,
Ooh,
sir.
one of them has to be a defense, huh?
Make it count.
Yeah.
And no, it doesn't have to be a defense.
It doesn't.
No.
Do whatever I want.
Do whatever you want here. You could always get one off waivers, I suppose.
That's fair. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get a second quarterback, kind of just have someone fill in on the bye week, or if God forbid anything happens to Pat Mahomes. I'm gonna go ahead and take Jameis Winston. Actually, he's got the rushing upside. Hopefully the week that I have him would be the week that he does something crazy. So I'm gonna take Jameis Winston there. And next up, I will go ahead and go with the suspense is a killer.
Especially when you're making your picks.
I know.
He was always taking just a little bit
You know,
longer.
I'll take Robinson from the Commanders just because they drafted him. It clearly seems it's not that Gibson doesn't have that job on lockdown. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Brian Robinson.
So to round out the last round of this draft, the computers decided to all take defenses. So Brian Robinson came off the board. The Raiders defense first, which makes not that much sense to me. The Jets defense, the Rams defense, the Commanders defense, Dolphins defense, and I am not going to pick a defense here because I want to give value to people in these kind of rounds. Obviously you would if you had a defense in your mock draft. So anyone new to fantasy football, obviously take a defense at some point during the draft if you need one, unless you're looking to address that situation after the draft, maybe a few days before the season. You think there might be an injury or something, you can always do that with a defense or a kicker. So in this spot, I'm going to take someone that could be valuable. Should J.K. Dobbins go down, and he averages over 5.2 yards a carry. Coming off the injury of last year, there's a little bit of concern, but in the 15th round, you can take dart throws. So I'm going to go with Gus Edwards here in this spot. After that was the Green Bay Packers defense, the Vikings defense, the Eagles, and how fitting the shitty Giants defense to round out this sleeper mock draft.
All these teams playing by the rules and actually drafting a defense.
Yeah, we absolutely did not play by the rules during this draft. Did anything stick out to you during this mock draft, Brian?
Like I said, there were a few weird ones that I thought went pretty early. That CeeDee Lamb was pretty early. Let me see what else. I'm just browsing through a board here really quick.
Dalvin Cook going at number 4 surprised me.
Yeah, because he's had a pretty decent drop off. Any thoughts on Chris Godwin, top of the 5th round, coming off his ACL? And it was an ACL, right?
I'm confident in Chris Godwin this upcoming season. I think he's going to be in for a good season. I don't think ACLs are anything like they used to, and they wouldn't have given him a contract if they weren't confident he wasn't going to come back nice and efficient. I think he's going to be ready for the season, honestly.
What were your thoughts about? Do you think Walker went a little early? 6th round, rookie, doesn't really have the starting job yet. Granted, he's behind some injury-prone running backs.
For a team that needs a running back, if you're doing maybe a 0 running back situation where you took the tight end early and you didn't draft a running back in the first 5 rounds, no, I don't think Walker is potentially a bad pick for you. Rashad Penny is known to get hurt. He already is hurt this offseason. Chris Carson's coming off a neck injury. They put a lot of draft capital into him, taking him. So I think he's going to emerge quite early for teams. So no, I don't see the 6th round being too early for him.
I will say too that although we think his role is going to change and all signs are pointing towards that, Cordell Patterson in the 8th, a top 10 running back last season, could be like striking gold if they somehow pull off what they did last year.
Again, we just have to see what happens with that running back situation.
Yep.
Algier could take that position. He honestly kind of reminds me of Mike Davis. I watched him because Sam obviously Zach Wilson, I can't believe my quarterback's name escaped me there for a second, played at BYU. So I saw Tyler Algier play a little bit, and he's a little plotty, but he's who they have behind him. So we'll just have to see if Cordell Patterson looks explosive at the beginning of the season. If the Falcons are winning games early, but I don't see that happening. And if they're not winning games early, they're going to want to see what they have in these young players. So Algier could get a lot of work, but Cordell Patterson in the 8th round, he's worth that just for the passing volume he's going to get there.
Yeah. 2 more things.
Sure.
James Cook, as we know, maybe a lot of it's the name, but he's getting a ton of conversation. We got him in the 11th in this mock. Do you see that going up significantly? Or do you see
absolutely. And you're going to be seeing him taken in the 7th or 8th round by the time that regular drafts roll around too. This is just a way too fucking early draft. So him going in the 11th, look for that to pick up steam as we get closer to the season. People start reading reports about him in Buffalo Bills training camp. It's going to pick up very, very much.
And like I said, maybe I'm just a hater, but Cooper Kupp at pick number 3, like I'll let someone take him at number 3 if they want. Like that just seems so early to me.
I would take him at number 3.
Really?
I've got no problem taking Cooper Kupp at number 3. No, absolutely. I do not think that was a fluke. I think he finally got someone who is more than just a barely competent quarterback. He's got an MVP level quarterback in Matt Stafford who elevated the players around him in Detroit, a Super Bowl MVP now. I think Cooper Kupp is going to do exactly what he did last year. I understand he's advancing a little bit in his age for football. Not that he's an old man and all, but in football, he is getting a little bit older. But we saw something out of him last season that this quarterback brought out. So look for this to continue this year. So I've got no problem taking him that high.
And then lastly, you had Saquon Barkley taken at pick 2-9. The following running backs were taken shortly thereafter. You had Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Gibson, David Montgomery. How many of those are better picks than Saquon Barkley, in your opinion?
I would say 2. Fournette, Aaron Jones, Zeke's got the potential. Montgomery definitely has potential. I would say 2 of them, Zeke and Montgomery, have the potential to be better. I think Fournette and Aaron Jones getting a lot of passing work are going to be better than Saquon this year. But I don't hate Saquon coming into this year, second year coming off injury. We've seen the upside with it, and he's got an improved offensive line. So I can see why they took him there.
They did boost up that offensive line, and I believe, is this a contract year?
It's coming up. This is his 4th year, so they've got to decide on that 5th. I think they did pick up his 5th year option, if I'm not mistaken. Correct.
Okay. And then, so I mentioned, I noticed you didn't mention Alvin Kamara. Where are you at on Alvin Kamara?
I need some more updates on Alvin Kamara before the season rolls up.
If
he's suspended for, go ahead.
Evaporate. Let's just say the legal issues evaporate. Does that change where you're at currently, or do you need more info as far as the team goes?
No, if everything evaporates, he's a first-round running back. There's no doubt about it. We've seen the talent.
So getting him at 212 is a steal.
That's an absolute steal if you can get him at 212. If you can get him there in best ball right now and you think that's a decent value based on it being quiet on his current issues, yeah, take him there. But as of right now, I need to know a little bit more about his availability coming to this offseason because the stuff that we saw in the spring didn't look good, but we just don't have any updates.
And I guess that could be part of, I mean, I don't know anyone that does drafts this early, but it's a risk versus reward when it comes to drafting this early, where there may be some stuff that makes a player fall that just kind of disappears, that doesn't end up being anything, you know? Mm-hmm. What about you? Did anything surprise you in this draft? How do you feel about maybe some of the rookie wide receivers, where they went? Was there anyone that didn't show up that you were surprised about or went way later than you thought?
Generically, I think the rookies went about where they did, and I think you'll get people getting a little bit of a run on them. They'll see one rookie go, and then all of a sudden they kind of get the butterflies for it. They're like, well, I need to go get my rookie. Honestly,
me when I selected
Drake London,
and then you saw Treylon Burks and all those other guys taken right after.
Honestly, I think Drake London being picked there was the appropriate pick. in this draft based on volume. You may have different opinions on other guys in Dynasty, but he in redraft, I think, is going to get the most volume this year. Let me preface, because we haven't gotten to our rookie draft yet, though. Maybe not necessarily in Dynasty. That is to be determined.
Yep.
Pickens is kind of an interesting wide receiver among the rookies, too, because he's still, while very talented, is going to have to beat out some wide receivers there. And he's either going to have Mitch Trubisky or a very small-handed rookie throwing him the ball, too. So
was he drafted?
Yes, he was drafted.
Okay. Where did he go?
A little bit later.
Yeah, but like you said, that was my biggest concern, is either he's playing with a rookie quarterback or Mitch Trubisky. So it's tough.
Yeah. And as we already stated, Dalvin Cook going that high, I think, was a little bit surprising, too.
Where would you put him?
Dalvin Cook?
Yeah, so you mentioned probably behind Derrick Henry. So what if you put him behind Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, and Najee Harris?
I'd drop him behind all of them. I would also drop him
behind Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would drop him behind Justin Jefferson.
And then, do you think that this might be a stupid question, but I mean, Devontae Adams went number 10. I mean, he's a stud, everybody knows, but he also won't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. Do you think, I mean, he's still going to be a high level wide receiver, obviously, but do you value him a little bit less going over to the Raiders?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I would take him in the first round. He was a volume hog with Aaron Rodgers, had a chemistry with him, but Derek Carr was I believe his college quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
So there is a chemistry there with Derek Carr. They may be rusty initially, but if I was going to take Devontae Adams, I think I would want to get him on the turn in the second round. There's a few players I think I would take in front of him. If we go back to the board here, I would take Jamar Chase in front of him, Joe Mixon. I don't think I would take Diggs. Swift. No. Yeah, so about on the turn is where I would take Adams. He's about in that area.
End of the first, the turn of the second.
Yeah. That's about where I would take him.
But that's a good thing to remember, too, that if you're in that team 10 spot, 10-ish, you're not guaranteed to get him on the turn. So it's going to be a gamble that you're going to have to make. Tyreek Hill did the Dolphins. Interesting. I don't love it. I don't have a ton of faith in Tua. Even 2-3, I don't know if I'm about it.
I mean, he's really a boom for that offense. The speed is there, but it's all a question of whether Tua can get in the ball downfield, and I don't believe he can. I would take him more towards the latter half of the second round and maybe into the third. We'll see where his value in stock is when we get closer to the season.
And is it just me, or is CeeDee Lamb going before Deebo Samuel, Mark Andrews, Alvin Kamara, Kyle Pitts, Keenan Allen? Like, does that just seem insane to you?
Yeah, that was weird as shit, and I think that's the oddity of this draft. That must be a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. That just... Unless I'm in the dark about CeeDee Lamb. Maybe I'm in the dark about CeeDee Lamb, and I'm not aware. But
I wouldn't take him that high.
I know that they lost Amari Cooper, but I don't think you can just assume CeeDee Lamb's going to get all of that.
Yeah, no. You can look for his volume to go up this year. They lost Blake Jarwin also. Like you said, Amari Cooper's gone. They did draft a rookie to come on the other side, but Gallup is also coming back off an injury. But there is players besides him to throw to on this offense. This is a pretty good offense.
Yeah.
Dalton Schultz is still there. But yeah, he could get a lot of targets, but there's players I would take before him.
I mean, he was wide receiver 19 last season, and he went wide receiver 7.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't take him in this spot. I don't think. Not the way this draft folded.
But I think that A.J. Brown pick might have been worse.
Yeah, no. And in fact, his stock ended up dropping when he went to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is an athletic quarterback who's good for fantasy football, but I don't think he even has a better passing arm than why is the name escaping me? Tennessee's quarterback currently.
Tannehill.
Yeah, than Tannehill.
And
I think Jalen Hurts can throw, but Tannehill's got a better arm. And not only that, the Eagles really have a strange identity of an offense. I mean, he was productive in a heavy running offense, but Hurts runs the ball himself too. And we don't know what their identity is going to be this year. I think you just have to drop his stock based on mystery this year.
Yeah, and so then lastly, you had Mark Andrews, who just went through the roof this past season.
Yep.
Outscored his previous best by 100 fantasy points in PPR.
Yep.
What do you think going into 2022? Is he closer to what he did last season or closer to what he did previous?
Closer to what he did last season. Hollywood Brown is gone there. That's going to open up a lot more targets there, and he is Lamar Jackson's security blanket. And even when Lamar Jackson wasn't there, he still was productive with the backup there, who is also an underrated quarterback.
Fair enough. And it's worth noting that in 2019, he was tight end number 5, 2020 number 6, 2020 number 1. So regardless, he's probably going to still be within that top 5 tight end range.
And not only that, that's as his opportunities increased, and now they trust him. So I see him as the clear tight end number 1 with his age, even above Travis Kelce.
Do you have him in our auction league?
I do.
You keeping him?
What do you think?
How much did you pay for him?
I traded for him. I don't know his value, but regardless, I'm keeping him.
Yeah. You won that for sure.
I think so too. And guys, with that, I think we're about ready to get out of here. If you like what you heard here on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, like and subscribe to the show. Again, Jake Seeley, thanks for doing the show earlier with Ron. We really appreciate it. Come back anytime you want. If you like to listen to the show in audio formats, guys, you can now listen on Pandora, Spotify, Apple, Google, Iheartradio, Tunein, and a multitude of other formats too. And with that, guys, have a great night. Leave reviews on the show. If you want to leave us voicemails, you can do it at www.garbagetimeff.com. We will play the questions and recordings live on the show if we get any. And guys, go back and watch that video Jake did. Absolutely fantastic. This is long-winded as hell, and I'm going to end this now. Have a good night, Heckling Fandom.